Hello, friends. Let us discuss anthropology. Okay. So, today we will discuss the impact of Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism on tribal societies. So, what is a tribal society or what is a tribal religion? So, tribal religion, I told you that it has unique set of beliefs, rituals, traditions that are orally transmitted from one generation to another generation. Okay, so ट्राइबल सोसाइटी अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड ट्राइबल रिलीजन इन डिटेल. Religion is present in all aspects of tribal life. Okay, so there are myths, there are beliefs, there are uh, other customs that is a part of their behavior. For example, animism. Tribals have animism form of a religion. I discussed with you what is animism in detail when I discussed with you socio-cultural anthropology. So tribal people, they believe in spirits of the dead ancestors. Tribals, religion of tribals, forest plays a very important role in the religion of tribals. They believe that their spirits of the dead ancestors, they live in the forest. Okay, so the worship pattern, their different practices, rites are being practiced by the tribal society. Religion plays a very important role in social setup of the society. Santhals believes that the creator, their creator remains in the sky, lived in the sky. Santhals called their creator Thakur Jiu, and they say that they live in the forest. So, what is the impact of Hinduism? Will discuss with you in Hinduism. What is the impact of Hinduism on tribal society? So, Hinduism, as you know, is the religion that is followed by majority of the people living in India. So Hinduism is the third largest religion behind Christianity and Islam. So it constitutes various philosophies, various traditions. Okay. So tribes have observed their assimilation into the Hindu society. So there is a lot of impact of Hinduism on the tribal society. There are various factors responsible for it. Missionary Hindus, like saints, religious leaders, they are spreading Hinduism among the tribal communities. Okay, social mobility is there. So tribes are adopting Hindu methods of traditions, rituals, because they want to raise their social status, economic status, and tribals want to integrate themselves into the Hinduism. For example, the Bhil tribe, consider themselves as Hindus. There is cultural assimilation, there is social mobility, there are missionary activities. Okay, so economic incentives is there, like access to resources, access to land, trade opportunities. They are linked to adoption of Hinduism. So this was prevalent during the time of Hindu rulers. So there are politics also play a very important role. Hindu rulers, they spread Hinduism. Okay. So for example, a home tribe, AHOM, AHOM, a home tribe, they live in northeast parts of Assam. Okay. So Hindu rulers encouraged a home tribe to adopt Hinduism. So Hindu home individuals, they got assimilated into Hindu society. So there are various adoption of Hinduism encouraged, helped tribals to access religious resources like temples, like religious texts, like priests. So they are encouraging tribals to adopt Hinduism. So N.K. Bose, in his book Tribal Methods of Hindu Adoption, so he detailed that how has Hindu society has tried to impact the tribal society. I gave you example of Bhil tribe adopted Hindu practices like Gond tribe. The Gond tribe, they live in central India. They also adopted Hinduism because they say that it will increase their social acceptance and they will be integrated in a better way to the mainstream society. Also, Santhal tribes, they came in contact with Hindu missionaries who propagated Hinduism, a home tribe. I gave you many examples. The home tribe, the Gond, the Santhal, they have adopted Hinduism. They have adopted Hinduism. So we are discussing impact of Hinduism on tribal society. So Santals, Gonds, Santals, Bills, they have converted themselves. They all previously were tribal societies and they converted themselves to Hinduism and adopted Hindu way of life, adopted Hindu religion, Hindu custom practices. And who converted them? And what are the factors that help tribes to convert into Hinduism? Like the role of Hindu missionaries, the priests, they helped a lot. The Hindu rulers provided access to land, the resources, only if the tribes convert themselves into Hinduism. So there is culture assimilation of culture of Hindus. There is there is social mobility. Want to increase the status. There are missionary activities. So there are economic incentives. They are provided access to various resources that help them to adopt themselves into Hindu methods and adopted Hinduism. I was discussing with you how they adopted the practices of Hinduism. So NK Boss has explained how Hindu got converted, how tribals got converted into Hindus. So it has impact on identity of the tribals. Okay, for example, Tharos, Khasas, they got converted into Kshatriya culture. For example, I have discussed with you the Varna system. There are four Varnas and the tribes they got converted into and adopted the Kshatriya culture. For example, Tharu and Khasas. So they changed their identity. They have an impact on rituals. So tribes also started wearing sacred threads. Then it has impact on culture also. So tribal culture, their customs, they have changed a lot. Tribes have, for example, Orvans, Asir I studied Orvans, and they worship Shivas and Parvatis. So tribal societies were egalitarian in nature, but there are instances of marriages, child marriages in tribal societies. There are restrictions on women's. So youth dormitories have destroyed. There are taboos are being placed on premarital and extramarital sex relation. Okay. So for example, I told you Tharus and Khasas, they started wearing threads. Pahadiyas, they have become Kshatriya model. Then various beliefs and customs have been adopted. Okay. So it has tribal women has been impacted, the position of tribal women has been changed due to contact with Hinduism. In tribal society, women have equal role to play, but there are now restrictions are being placed on tribal women. So there is decreased role of tribal women in economic activity. So the tribal women are no longer, they are not owner of the parents' properties, land rights. So tribal, there is a decrease in tribal divorces and sacredness of marriage has been played increased importance in the tribal societies. So I discussed with you how the tribals have changed their way of life. Even women has been impacted a lot due to tribal societies. Women had economic role to play in tribal societies, but when it come in contact with the Hindu societies, their economic role goes on diminishing. Also, tribal women has to go through various restrictions that has been imposed on them. So various types of restrictions are being put on the tribal women. Then there is increased restriction. Then marriage customs, there are a lot of changes in marriage customs as well. So there are less divorces in now tribal societies because importance of sacredness of marriage has been conveyed to the tribal societies. So there are so many effects on the impact of Hinduism on tribal societies, on tribal women especially. Also, like khasas, gowns, bills, santals. So there is a lot of, they have adopted Hindu way of life, Hindu religion, Hindu customs, Hindu traditions. So there are many factors that are responsible for assimilation of Hindus, assimilation of tribes into Hinduism. And there are impacts of Hinduism on tribal identity, on rituals, on tribal women and also on youth dormitory. So youth dormitory has been destroyed because of the impact of Hinduism. Okay, now there are premarital, extramarital, and extramarital relationships was there in tribal societies. No, they are taboos. They are taboo. It is a taboo on the tribal societies now. So there are incidences of child marriages in tribal societies. You have to justify your statement with examples of tribes. So, like Orwans, as you know, I studied Orwans, and Orwans they have adopted, for example, they consider Shiva and Parvati as their religious god. Orwans worship Shiva and Parvati. So there are a lot of impacts of Hinduism on travel movements. Let us now discuss impact of Buddhism on tribal societies. So Buddhism it was spread throughout South Asia through the Aryans, through the Mauryans. So it was began with the Siddhartha Gautam. Okay, he was prince from the Sakya kingdom. It was located in the foothills of the Himalayas in the Nepal. He was a prince from Sakya kingdom. It is the younger religion in India. So there are the influence have seen of Hinduism, Buddhism on tribal society. Okay, so there are like in northwest Himalayas, there are so many tribes like Nagas, Ladakhis, Bhutias, Lepchas. So Buddhism, impact of Buddhism. So Buddhism has impacted many tribes like Lepchas, Bhotias, then Ladakhis, living in the Himalayan region. Okay, and Nagas also. You can write Nagas. And Buddhism has played a consistent role on tribal societies, on tribal communities. So actually Buddhism and values as well as tribal values were similar. Okay, like no harm, no harm to living beings, non-violence are values of tribal societies as well as Buddhist societies. So we can say that it has alignment. Both have alignment with each other. Then coexistence of traditional and Buddhist practices. So tribal communities, we see both the existence of converted and non-converted members. They exist, coexist. Okay. So those who have adopted Buddhism, they maintain Gompas, Gompas. This is a keyword, Gompas. So those who have converted into Buddhism have started maintaining Gompas, which is a sacred place. Okay, and here Buddha's images and sacred texts are preserved. Okay, so these are the sacred places. These are looked after by sacred specialists. So tribal values is there, alignment of tribal values is there. We see the existence of both Buddhism and traditional and Buddhist practices. It has impacted certain tribes. So many the tribal people who adopt Buddhism, okay, then they actively participate in communities' traditional rituals also. Okay, they have practiced Buddhism as well as they are also worship tribal deities. So there is existence of old and new religion traditions. Okay, so despite the dominance of Buddhism, traditional beliefs are still intact. Okay, so it has a lot of impact on tribal societies. Okay, so there are some tribes of northeast states. So Arunachal Pradesh is one of the most Buddhist states in the northeast region of India. So Buddhism is a Tibetan form of Buddhism due to the influence of Tibet. Okay, so there is lot of impact of Buddhism. There are Buddhist tribes of India, of Arunachal Pradesh. There are 6 tribes. They are living in western, eastern, and central part of Arunachal Pradesh. So the form of Buddhism that is prevalent in Arunachal Pradesh is of, I have given the case study of Arunachal Pradesh. So it is Tibet form of Buddhism because of great contact with Tibet. Okay, so it has Buddhism has impacted the social economic life, the art form, the culture, okay, the monuments. It has influenced a lot. So Hinduism has influenced a lot. Buddhism has influenced a lot. We see a lot of tribal communities that have adopted Buddhism. They have their culture. They see look after the Gompas. Okay, they have values aligned with the tribal communities. We see Tibetan form of Buddhism in Arunachal Pradesh. In Orwans also, I have seen the impact of Hinduism. Gons, Bills, Santans, Khasas are there that have lot of impact of Hinduism on the tribal communities. Moving forward, the impact of Christianity on tribal societies. Yes, Christianity too has a lot of impact on tribal societies. So social change is there in the tribal societies. Okay. So last number of Christian scheduled tribes are located in Meghalaya. Meghalaya, we see a lot of Christian. It has the highest population of Christian tribes. So tribes living in Meghalaya have been impacted by the Christianity. Okay, so most of the tribal Christians are you see are found in the northeast Himalayan region. They have, for example, Garo, Naga, Mizo, Khasi, Orwan. They practice Christianity. Okay, Mizo, Naga, Orwans, Khasi, they have been impacted by Christianity. Mundas, Orwans, Khasi, Garo, Mizo, Munda, Orwans, they have, so you see Munda, Orwan, they are impacted by both Hinduism and Buddhism, Hinduism and Christianity. We see Buddhism has impacted the tribal communities of Northeast as well as Northwest Himalayan region. Christianity and Hinduism has both impacted Orwans, Garos, Mundas, Nagas. Okay, but Mizos and Garos they are influenced by Buddhism. It has. It's not that tribes are affected by one community alone. Some tribes are infected by both Hinduism as well as the Christianity. Okay, we see Orvans, we see Baigas, we see Birhor, Pahadia, Pahadia, Birhor, Baiga. All these tribes are impacted by Christianity. So let us study the impact on. So there is a change in food habits, change in dress. They are more devoted to education. Okay, they have less faith in magic and witchcraft. Lost faith in magic and witchcraft. I told you that magic and witchcraft are important component of tribal societies. On coming in contact with the Christianity, they started educating themselves. They got influenced by education system of Christianity and they started losing faith in magic and witchcraft. So there is increased devotion to education. There is a change in the dress pattern. Okay, I told you bills, khasis, orwans like bills, khasis, orwans. They are impacted by Christian missionaries. So impact on religion. I told you there is coexistence among Buddhism and tribal religion. So due to Christianity, they give up tribal beliefs and practices. Okay. So they started uh, interpreting their festivals in terms of Christianity, Christianized myths. Okay. Mundas have been impacted by Christianity. Okay, Mundas, Pahadias, Birhor, Vedas, so many tribal communities have been impacted by Hinduism and like Khasas, Khasis, Gonds, Bhils, Santals, Orwans, Garos, Mundas, Pahadia, Birhor, Vedas. So all these tribes are impacted by the various religion practices. So they have given up. So tribals have given up their religion, have started accepting Christianity. For example, there is a festival called Sarhul Festival of Munda. Sarhul Festival of Munda. So they have started this festival interpretation in terms of Christianity. Okay, so they have adopted Christianity faith. So there is considerable change in social life, economic life, celebration of festivals, and other aspects of their culture. Okay, so it has been great effect. For example, G.S. Gure. What did G.S. Gure told? G.S. Gure told that tribals are ancient Hindus. they are Hindus also, and they are backward Hindus. They must be integrated with the or assimilated into the mainstream societies. Who told? G.S. Gure. Okay, so D.N. Mazumdar, he emphasized that the cultures of tribals must be protected as it becomes part of larger Indian Federation of Culture. So you must quote the name of D.N. Mazumdar and G.S. Gure. G.S. Gure, anthropologists, told that tribals are backward Hindus and they must be assimilated into the mainstream society. D.N. Mazumdar focused on that the cultures of the tribal people must be protected and becomes part of Indian Federation of Cultures. It is the part of larger culture. Now let us discuss about the impact of Islam on tribal communities. So let us now discuss the impact of Islam on tribal communities. So Islam is the second biggest religion in India after Hinduism. So it has impacted, for example, various tribes of Lakshadweep like Koyas, Aminidives. They converted to Islam by the influence of Islamic tradition. So today many Islamic traditions have become a part of their culture. For example, the matrilineal features of the tribes has been changed because of adopting tribal customs. They also celebrate Eid, Muharram, but also celebrating their religious practices. So Islam also had contact with Gujars, Bakarwals, and Bhils also, and they have converted to Islam's. Their food habits have changed, their dress patterns have changed. Okay, they are also adopting Islam principles and preachers. So there is, for example, Lakshadweep is there, like Amindivis, Koyas. I am discussing with you the impact of Islam, like in Lakshadweep, Amindivis, Koyas. They have converted into Islam communities. Okay, when Muslims like Mapila Muslims of Kerala, they have also follow their old traditional patterns as well as they have started celebrating the Muslim festivals. Okay, so Mapila Muslims. So what to talk of Mapila Muslims? So it is a community that was formed because of the contact of Arab traders with Arab traders with Malabar women. So Malabar women and Arab traders, due to the matrimonial alliance with the Arab traders, and Malabar women. So these Mapida Muslims come into existence. You see, the matrilineal aspect of tribal societies have also impacted ये various tribes have celebrating their Muslims festivals like Eid. Okay, so they read namaz every Friday and also celebrate Janmashtami, Navratri the Hindu way. Okay, and God Barai ceremonies they celebrate. So I talks about meat tribes of Gujarat. Meat tribes of Gujarat. MNDs, Koyas, Mapila Muslims, meat tribes of Gujarat, Dear Mazumdar, GS Gure. You all have to mention these keywords in your answer writing. Okay. So, for example, the meats they marry by Islamic way and they bury their dead as per Hindu customs, but they do not practice polygamy. So, Meer tribes of Gujarat. So, the Meer tribes belongs to nomadic tribe. It is a nomadic tribe. They are economically and socially backward classes. Okay, so matrilineal means the descent is traced through the female line. So there are many instances we see the existence of Islam and matrilineal because Islam is practiced patrilineally. Okay, but some converted people of India they still follow the laws based on matrilineal descent. They still follow matrilineal descent. Okay, so I discussed with you the impact of they have impact on social aspect is there, social impact is there, economic impact is there, religious impact is there, social impact, economic impact, religious impact, change in food habits, dress pattern, lot of habits, some are coexisting like tribal belief as well as other religion belief. Alignment with the tribal values with the religious belief of Buddhism. About Islam, they are celebrating like Mapila Muslims, Mir tribes, they are celebrating, there is existence of old traditions as well as the religious traditions. So Buddhism has been impacted to a large extent. Christianity has been impacted to a large extent. Islam has impacted the tribal communities to a large extent. Hinduism has impacted the tribal communities to a large extent. You mentioned the name of the various tribes that are impacted by Hindus, Muslims, Christianities, and Buddhism. And you have to give the name of anthropologists who studies these impact like G.S. Gure, D.N. Mazumdar. You have to mention the name of these tribes when they study the impact of the Hinduism, the Muslims, the Christianities, the Islams on the tribal communities. You have to quote the various case studies. You have to give the name of various names so as to study in detail about the impact of the tribal communities, the, the various impact of Christianity, Buddhism, and religion on the tribal communities. It is very important topic. Okay, so when I talk to the concept of the role of anthropology in rural and tribal development. What is the role of anthropology? So, anthropology, I talked about the study of holistic study of human beings in totality. It is a study of human beings in totality. So, the three David Mendelbaum talks about the three hallmarks like holistic study, cultural relativism, participant observation. So we, through this cultural relativism, through this holistic view and participant observation, it provide in-depth understanding of every aspects of project life with objectivity and empathy. So anthropologists the most suited to work for tribal development. So anthropology studied simple societies as well as complex societies. So it adopts various methods in it, like aiming approach, ethic approach, holistic perspective of discipline, multidisciplinary approach, cultural relativism. So it understand the tribals, the rural issues, and it can facilitate their development in an effective way. Okay, so when we talk of anthropology in rural and tribal development, it plays a prominent role in rural and tribal development. Yes, of course, it plays a lot of role in rural and tribal development. So it is the crux of the syllabus, the concepts that you have studied. Okay, so when I talk of impact of anthropology on tribal and rural development, what is the impact? So, D.N. Mendelbaum studied about the three hallmarks of anthropology like holism, cultural relativism, and participant observations. Anthropology implies various approaches to study various types of societies, rural societies, urban societies, tribal societies, like aiming approach through holistic perspective of discipline and through cultural relativism. Anthropologists have conducted a lot of ethnographic studies like Orwans, Mundas, then Hos, Santals, Garos, Khasis, Birhos, Baigas, Pahadias, Mizos, Nagas, Khasas. Okay, so they have conducted a lot of ethnographic studies, ethnologies. So, based upon their ethnographic studies, anthropologists help to work on policy making. Anthropologists work on policy making. Yes, policy making. They do a lot of work on policy making. They carry out field work, they work with the tribals, they work with the societies. Okay, so how? So tribals understand, anthropologists understand tribal culture and structure. Okay, for example, Varian Alvin like G.S. Gure. Okay, though so they studied various tribes. Varian Alvin studies Vedas. You must mention the name. Varian Alvin studies Vedas. G.S. Gure. He's called the father of Indian sociology. So categorize tribes as backward Hindus. Okay. So he also criticized the concept of isolation strategy put forward by Varian Alvin. Okay. So studied various scheduled tribes. So anthropologists helped in studying structure and culture, also advocate for tribal rights and welfare. Okay, so LP Vidyarthi studied nature man spirit complex. They studied Baylor. So they advocate for the welfare to protect the forest, to allow tribes to remain in forest, to work in forest, because their economic life depend upon forest. So they fight for, they asked the people, the government to, they advocate for tribal rights and welfare like LP Vidyarthi, nature man spirit complex. Okay, then documentation and integration of indigenous knowledge system. So indigenous knowledge system, for example, agriculture practices, forestry, healthcare. Okay, for example, C.V. Hammondorf have studied the tribes of Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, T.N. Pandit studied Andamanese tribes. So, indigenous knowledge system. Anthropologists have documented and integrated indigenous knowledge system of tribes. For example, Pandit have studied Andamanese tribes. C.V. Hammondorf have studied the tribes of Himachal Pradesh and how they are in the what constitutes the indigenous knowledge system. Sustainable agricultural practices. Sustainable agricultural practices. Okay. Forestry, health care system, herbal medicines. So all this constitutes indigenous knowledge system. So indigenous knowledge system, anthropologists talks about documentation of indigenous knowledge system. Okay. So also contribution to tribal healthcare and medicine. Also addresses health inequalities. there is health disparities by the tribal communities. For example, D.N. Mazumdar studied Tharus of Uttar Pradesh. D.N. Mazumdar, Tharus of Uttar Pradesh, and studied the lifestyle, okay, tribal lifestyle and environmental conditions. So there is a need of preventive health care to protect Tharus of Uttar Pradesh. It was studied by D.N. Mazumdar. Okay, so D.N. Mazumdar like studied a lot for the tribal development. LP Vidyarthi studied a lot for the tribal development. Warrior Alvin studied a lot for the tribal welfare. G.S. Gure also studied a lot. Okay, so you mentioned these 4 to 5 name of anthropologists in your case studies and other examples in your answer writing. So it has contributed a lot for the tribals, address tribals' concerns, address health inequalities, studied tribal structure and culture, documented indigenous knowledge system. Okay, so they've talked about tribal rights and welfare. Okay, then maternal and child health. So it is a critical concern among tribal communities due to infant and maternal mortality rate is high. Okay, so Leela Dubey, he advocated for maternal and child health. Okay, so it is very important. So skill development, like Leela Dubey, it talked for maternal and child health. It talked for maternal and child health. How and why? So let us discuss on these. There is high infant mortality rate, there is high maternal mortality rate. So we have to, Lila Dubey says that there is a need to focus on maternal and child health. It's very critical. There has to be gender sensitive health interventions, concerns for health and nutrition in tribal communities. So also anthropologists as there is a need to for tribal education and skill development. Okay, like LP Vidyarthi, BK Roy. BK Roy, LP Vidyarthi, we should mention the name. What did they do? What did they? LP Vidyarthi talked about the education system, the skill development of tribals. BK Roy also wanted that these mother tongue languages should be included in the curriculum. Tribal language, there should be cultural content, tribal languages in their school curricula. It becomes relevant. Okay, so design of tribal development and policies. Okay, like panchayat extension to scheduled areas. It empowers tribal gram sabhas. Forest Right Act is there. So tribal development policies and programs. Tribal development policies and programs. It is very important. It has contributed a lot in the design of this. Okay. So there are challenges in tribal development. Okay. So some bureaucratic resistance is there. Okay. So anthropological insights, yes, very important theme, are often sidelined by bureaucrats and policymakers who prioritize technocratic solutions and quantitative data. So anthropological insights are sometimes ignored by bureaucrats and policymakers. So there is a conflict between cultural preservation and development. So we have to prioritize preservation of tribal cultures, but development cost projects causes displacement of tribals and there is a cultural erosion. I gave you many examples of hydroelectric projects starting Sardar Sarovar Dam, Kaul Kela project, then various mineral extraction industries, Nalco, then Rourkela steel plant, okay, then Bokaro steel plant. So what has happened? There is a conflict between cultural preservation and development. Okay, so there has to be ethical dilemmas. So they have to play their role as researchers and developmental practitioners. So ethical dilemmas. So anthropologists have to take care of ethical dilemmas. Means research subjects should be informed well before any research is undertaken. Ethical dilemmas. So globalization has also disrupted traditional tribal economies. So they are posing new challenges for anthropologists. Okay. So Leela Dubey, B.K. Roy, L.P. Vidyarthi, S.C. Roy, G.S. Gore, D.N. Mazumdar. Okay, you have to mention all these names in the study of impact of anthropology on tribal and rural development. So it has studied about the various culture system, the various religious system, the various effects of it. We have talked about, I have talked about a lot of things in it. There is bureaucratic resistance of it. So I need to take care of all these things. So there has to be application of anthropological knowledge in tribal welfares. Okay, you must understand about this. Now let us now discuss about role of anthropology in rural development. In rural development, how anthropology contributed in the rural development. So anthropology is the holistic study of mankind, human beings in totality. Anthropology is the holistic study of human beings in totality. Okay, so how anthropology contributed in rural development? You have to talk about M. Srinivasan study of village India, M. Srinivasan study of village India, then McIntyre study, S.E. Dubé. So you have to mention, you have to talk about the various concepts that Sanskritization contributed the upliftment of the tribals from the low status to the high status. Dominant caste concepts also studied the role of anthropology in rural development. Universalization, procreation, various concepts that were emerged from these case studies. So it studies the rural system, the caste system, okay, how Indian villages are part of the wider society and not mere little republics. No colonial states had talked about that villages are little republics. They are not little republics. They are part of the wider societies as it has been explained by various concepts like Sanskritization, Westernization, urbanization, okay, developmentalization, universalization, procreation. Okay, so what are the impacts of globalization on these societies? So it has provided to policy making in rural communities. Okay, so anthropologists like applied anthropologists, action anthropologists have provided many insights to policymakers for their rural development. Okay, like Panchayati Raj institutions, PISA Act in tribal India, in rural India. So responsible for positive change in society. So significance of anthropology. Understand social structure and power dynamics. The caste system, the kinship system, the gender studies like M.N. Srinivasan, dominant caste concept. ठीक है. For example, Ivan Pritchard's study of nudes in Sudan, Louis Dumont, okay, Homo hierarchies, analysis of Louis Dumont studied caste system, Louis Dumont, you should mention its name, studied caste system, M.N. Srinivasan studied dominant caste, M.N. Srinivasan studied dominant caste, Ivan Pritchard studied New South Sudan. So all these are rural case studies. They have studied about the rural life, the marriage, family. Okay, the various economic system of village. So community empowerment. It has also looked for integration of indigenous knowledge system. Okay, it also addresses social inequalities. in the form of caste. Okay, so it also helps evaluation of monitoring and evaluation of development programs. So, lot of like addressing social inequalities, like addressing, looking after, monitoring development programs, like studying culture, social structure and culture, like culturally sensitive developmental policies. Okay, so like C.V. Hemmendorf advocated for the modernization of agriculture. Okay, so the Green Revolution, while successful in some region, it failed in tribal areas because it disregard traditional agriculture practices and social norms. So there are many, there has to be integration of indigenous knowledge system, participatory development and community empowerment, understanding social structure and power dynamics. So you have to quote the name of S.C. Dubey, India Village, Aman Srinivasan, India Villages, and Mackie Marriott, Village India Studies. The key concepts that came out of it, you have to study it. There are challenges, of course, there are challenges. Of course, there are challenges in it. There are developmental goals and local and traditional culture preservation is there. Then there is bureaucratic resistance. Then there are ethical dilemmas is there. Okay. Then institutional support, the lack of institutional support. Okay. So is often underutilized in developmental planning. It is why it is underutilized because no lack of institutional support and funding. So yes, of course, it has impact. Anthropology has become too important to be left to anthropologists alone. The need is to apply anthropological approach in large levels of administration, especially at the grassroots level, if we want to achieve inclusive rural development. So they often rely on technological solution and quantitative data. Okay, lack of institutional support has to be there. So, for example, self-employed women's association like Seva, self-employed women's association, it has gone a long way in providing, studying the various programs, studying the impact of various programs on rural women. It provides various insights for policy improvements. For policy, you have to frame policy, you have to provide insights for policy improvements. So there has been a lot of things that are going to be discussed. So we have to take care of impact of rural anthropology into rural and tribal development. So anthropologist views insights should become part of developmental programs and policies. So so it should study participant observations. Okay, so you have to apply the anthropological knowledge so as for sustainable or inclusive development of the rural and tribal community. So various things have been studied, various tribes has been studied, various rural communities have been studied like LP Vidyarthi, Gila Dube, SC Dube, okay, then MN Srinivasan, then Mekin Marriott, then LP Vidyarthi, BK Roy, DN Mazumdar, DN Mazumdar like studied thousands of UP. So this indigenous knowledge system, this we have to take care of. We have to improve environmental study of North of Sudan. So all this impact have to be taken care of when we study. We have to mention all these things in the study of impact of anthropology to rural and urban development. We have studied so far. We have discussed about the impact of Hinduism, impact of Buddhism, impact of Islam, Christianity on the tribal societies. I have also discussed with you the impact of anthropologies on rural and tribal development. Yes, it has brought various lot of impacts. We have studied various concepts. We have studied about the social structure. We have studied about the various the culture systems of the tribal communities. I have studied about the indigenous knowledge system. They have talked about the policy making में help की है और then talked about the policy improvement में भी help की है anthropologist ने वेरियस अंडर स्टडीज की है, विलेज स्टडीज की गई है, ट्राइबल स्टडीज की गई है एससी रॉय द्वारा, परवान्स मुंडास, ठीक है, डीएन मजूमदार द्वारा थारूस की स्टडी की गई है, नीला दुबे ने स्टडी की है, मैटरनल चाइल्ड हेल्थ के बारे में बात की जाती है, इनकी एजुकेशन के बारे में बात की जाती है, इनकी इंडिजिनस नॉलेज सिस्टम को प्रोटेक्ट करने की बात की जाती है, इनके ट्रेडिशनल एग्रीकल्चर सिस्टम को सस्टेनेबल बनाने की बात की जाती है, इनके जो है रिलेशन जो है सोशल लाइफ को स्टडी करती है, कल्चरल लाइफ को स्टडी करती है, इनके अंदर जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं वो हम स्टडी करते हैं, हम डिफरेंट कोर्स स्टडी करते हैं, एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट को हमने कैसे स्टडी किया, ट्राइबल को और रूरल डेवलपमेंट को स्टडी किया, हमने इंडिजिनस नॉलेज सिस्टम को एक्सप्लेन किया, हमने एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल इंसाइट्स को एक्सप्लेन किया, उसके बाद हमने जो एंथ्रोपोलॉजी का काम था, क्या काम था, वो रूरल डेवलपमेंट में क्या काम था, या फिर उसमें क्या का रोल है, वो हमने स्टडी किया, किस तरह से ये डेवलपमेंटल प्रोग्राम्स को जो है वो जो है वो मॉनिटर करते हैं, वो किस तरह से ये कल्चरली सेंसिटिव डेवलपमेंट पॉलिसीज के लिए एडवोकेट करते हैं, और किस तरह से ये एडवोकेट करते हैं सोशल स्ट्रक्चर को अंडरस्टैंड करना है ना, किस तरह से ये स्टडी करते हैं डिफरेंट एथिकल डायलेमास, हाँ इनको इश्यूज आते हैं लेकिन फिर भी ये काम पे लगे हुए हैं, ये स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए फोकस करते हैं, चाइल्ड हेल्थ के लिए फोकस करते हैं, ये जो हेल्थ इनक्वालिटीज है जो प्रेजेंट है वहाँ पे रूरल एरियाज में या ट्राइबल एरियाज में उसको एड्रेस करते हैं, तो इनके सोशल सिस्टम को स्टडी करते हैं, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ अर्बनाइजेशन, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ वेस्टर्नाइजेशन, संस्कृताइजेशन, डोमिनेंट कास्ट को स्टडी करते हैं, वहाँ की पॉलिसी पावर पॉलिटिक्स को स्टडी करते हैं, सोशल स्ट्रक्चर को स्टडी करते हैं, तो इन चीजों को स्टडी करके जो है हम होलिस्टिक वे में हम स्टडी कर पाते हैं ट्राइब्स को, हम कम्युनिटीज को स्टडी कर पाते हैं, हम स्टडीज को कर पाते हैं, हम वेरियस जो फैक्टर्स है हम उनको स्टडी कर पाते हैं, हम डिफरेंट ट्राइब्स की स्टडीज को कोट करते हैं, हम इनइक्वालिटीज को निकाल के पाते हैं, हम उनको देखते हैं कि किस तरह से उनके फीचर्स कैसे चेंज हो जाते हैं, हमने देखा कि वो किस तरह से जो है ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज जो है उनकी स्टडी की जाती है एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट के द्वारा, चाहे एलपी विद्यार्थी हो, डीएन मजूमदार हो, वीएन हेमंडॉर्फ हो, देन एमएन श्रीनिवासन हो, एससी दुबे हो, लीला दुबे हो, ठीक है। उसके बाद ये लुइस डोमोंट हो, इवान रिचर्ड्स हो, तो इनकी आपने नाम कर, जीएस गुरे हो, वेरियर एल्विन हो, तो जिस तरह से ये बात करते हैं, जीएस गुरे ने कहा कि जो ट्राइबल्स हैं ये बैकवर्ड हिंदूज हैं। तो उसके बाद वेरियर एल्विन ने वेगास की स्टडी की, तो इनका पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम स्टडी किया, स्ट्रक्चर स्टडी किया, इनके नॉलेज सिस्टम को इंटीग्रेट करने की कोशिश की, इनके हेल्थ इनक्वालिटीज को स्टडी करने की कोशिश की, न्यूट्रिशन को स्टडी करने की कोशिश की। हमने इनके जो है एथिकल डायलेमास, हमें इश्यूज आते हैं इसमें, हमें किस तरह से जो है हम डेवलपमेंट का प्रोग्राम जो होते हैं उनकी मॉनिटरिंग करते हैं, उनकी वैल्यूएशन करते हैं, और पॉलिसी इंप्रूवमेंट के लिए गवर्नमेंट को एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल इंसाइट जो है वो प्रोवाइड किए जाते हैं। ओके, वेरियस हेल्थ डिस्पैरिटीज जो होती हैं उनको एड्रेस किया जाता है। डीएन मजूमदार ने कहा, है ना, किस तरह से लीला दुबे ने कहा कि वुमेन के ऊपर फोकस किया, उन्होंने वुमेन एजुकेशन के ऊपर फोकस किया, ट्राइबल एजुकेशन और स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए इन्होंने कहा कि उनको करने की जरूरत है। आश्रम स्कूल सेटअप करने के लिए बोलते हैं, और इवन जो एकलव्य स्कूल्स हैं वो सेटअप करने के लिए बोलते हैं, और इनके जो नेचर ट्राइबल कॉस्ट कॉन्टिन्यूम को हम स्टडी कर पाते हैं। तो हम इनको जो सोशल इनइक्वालिटीज हैं, हम सोशल हिरार्किकल सिस्टम है, कास्ट सिस्टम है, सोशल हिरार्कीज है, वो हम स्टडी कर पाते हैं, ट्राइबल के लाइफ में भी, रूरल की लाइफ में भी, और किस तरह से इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है जो रिलीजियस कम्युनिटीज का किस तरह से इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, बुद्धिज्म का किस तरह से इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, रिलीजन प्रैक्टिसेस का किस तरह से इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, क्रिश्चियनिटी ने किस किस ट्राइब्स को इम्पैक्ट किया है, ये बुद्धिज्म ने किस किस कम्युनिटीज को इम्पैक्ट किया, किस तरह से ट्रेडिशनल वैल्यूज को वो प्रोपोगेट करता है। बहुत सारी कम्युनिटीज, ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज हैं, ऑरवान्स हैं, गॉन्स हैं, बिल्स हैं, ये इन्होंने जो हिंदुइज्म के जो फेस्टिवल्स हैं वो सेलिब्रेट करते हैं। हिंदुइज्म के फेस्टिवल सेलिब्रेट करने के साथ साथ उनके जो ट्रेडिशंस हैं, रिचुअल्स हैं, सैक्रेड थ्रेड्स ये पहनते हैं। जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि जो ऑरवान्स हैं वो शिवा और पार्वती की पूजा करते हैं। ये साथ साथ में रिलीजियस जो फेस्टिवल्स हैं, जिस रिलीजन को ये अडॉप्ट करते हैं उनके फेस्टिवल्स भी सेलिब्रेट करते हैं, और अपने जो ट्रेडिशनल जो रिचुअल्स हैं उनको भी फॉलो करते हैं। बुद्धिज्म ने जैसे लेप्चास है, थारूस लेप्चास है, जैसे बोटियास है, बुतियास है, ठीक है, तो गुजर्स है, तो ये सारे ट्राइब्स जो है वो ये इनके ऊपर रिलीजन्स का इम्पैक्ट हुआ है, पहाड़ियों के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट हुआ है, बेगास के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट हुआ है। तो हम इन चीजों को पढ़ने की कोशिश करते हैं, होलिस्टिक वे में स्टडी करें, क्योंकि होलिस्टिक जो है एंथ्रोपोलॉजी बेसिकली क्या है, होलिस्टिक स्टडी है ह्यूमन बीइंग्स की, होलिस्टिक स्टडी है ह्यूमन बीइंग्स की इन टोटलिटी। हम ह्यूमन बीइंग्स की स्टडी करते हैं, इन टोटलिटी में हम स्टडी करने की कोशिश करते हैं, स्टडी करते हैं, होलिस्टिकली हम स्टडी करते हैं, हम डिफरेंट फिनोमिनास को स्टडी करते हैं। हम क्रिश्चियनिटी कैसे कन्वर्ट हो गए, क्रिश्चियनिटी में ट्राइबल्स, हिंदुइज्म में कैसे कन्वर्ट हो गए ट्राइबल्स, तो उस इस्लाम में कैसे ट्राइबल्स हो गए कन्वर्ट, तो इनकी सोशल लाइफ में, इकोनॉमिक लाइफ में, पॉलिटिकल लाइफ में क्या चेंजेस आ गए, इनकी फूड हैबिट्स में क्या चेंजेस आ गई, इनके जो है फूड हैबिट्स की बात हमने की, इनके हमें जो है जो कॉम्पास में ये कैसे बनाने लगे, इनके ड्रेस है जो है वो कैसे हैबिट्स चेंज हो गए, सोशल इकोनॉमी से मापिला मुस्लिम्स की बात की, अमिनडीबीज की बात की, कोयास की बात की, मीर ट्राइब्स है गुजरात की, उनकी बात की मैंने, ठीक है, सरहुल है मुंडा का फेस्टिवल है वो, उसकी बात की। तो हमने इन लोगों की बात की, ट्राइब्स की बात की, हमने एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल इंसाइट्स की बात की, हम इंडिजिनस नॉलेज सिस्टम को हम अप्लाई करने की कोशिश करते हैं, हम इनइक्वालिटीज जो होती हैं, हेल्थ इनइक्वालिटीज, उनको एड्रेस करने की कोशिश करते हैं, हम चीज़ों को होलिस्टिकली वे में स्टडी करने की कोशिश हम करते हैं। ओके, तो हम होलिस्टिक वे में इन स्टडीज वो करते हैं। तो हमने देखा कि गाइस, तो हमने स्टडी किया, हमने ट्राइब्स को स्टडी किया, हमने इम्पैक्ट को स्टडी किया, हमने देखा कि किस तरह से रिलीजन का क्या इम्पैक्ट होता है, हिंदुइज्म का क्या इम्पैक्ट हुआ ट्राइबल सोसाइटीज के ऊपर। हम बेसिकली ट्राइबल इंडिया को पढ़ रहे हैं। अभी हमने एंथ्रोपोलॉजी को स्टडी किया, किस तरह से ट्राइबल और रूरल सोसाइटीज को इम्पैक्ट करता है, किस तरह से उन्होंने क्या क्या वहाँ पे चेंजेस लेके आए, क्या क्या इम्पैक्ट करता है, वो एडवोकेट करते हैं, पॉलिसी को एडवोकेट करते हैं, पॉलिसी मेकर्स को गाइड करते हैं, है ना, सोशल इंजीनियर्स और सोशल डॉक्टर्स बनने की सलाह देते हैं, उनको कहा जाता है कि आपने क्या करना है, किस तरह से आपने जो है उनमें चेंजेस लाने हैं, किस तरह से आपने उनको जो है वो चेंज करने की कोशिश करनी है। ओके गाइस, तो हमारे तो वीडियोस में मैंने आपको चीज़ों को एक्सप्लेन किया है, तो मेरी वीडियोस को स्टार्टिंग से लेकर अंत तक बनिए रहे गाइस। तो हमने डिस्कस किया आज इम्पैक्ट ऑफ tribals, anthropologists on tribal and rural societies, and impact of Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity and Islam on ट्राइबल सोसाइटीज को हमने डिस्कस किया। ओके गाइस, तो चैनल में बने रहिए, वीडियोस को देखते रहिए, तो लाइक करिए, सब्सक्राइब करिए और शेयर करिए गाइस। थैंक यू गाइस, हैव ए नाइस गुड डे।